What do I need to know about the recently released free City of Braavos in Crusader Kings 3: A Game of Thrones? Today, we tackle that very question. In this deep dive, we'll be covering everything from the buildings to the cultures to the dynasties to the financial indexes, so you can tackle everything this new region has to offer. Before we begin, hello, my name is Midgeman, and this guide was made for version 0.4.0. Please check the mod version when referring to this guide, and make sure you head to the comments to check for updates, provided corrections, and for the general discussion. Now join as we venture through the legs of the Titan and open an account with the Iron Bank of Braavos. Player's Guide. In this section of the guide, we'll cover both the best practices of how to play a campaign as Braavos, but also the key information about what to expect from the region itself. To that end, there are 8 terrain types within the de jure Braavos region: Targia, urban, hills, wetlands, meadows, mountains, forests, and plains, with the vast majority being hills. There are 24 dynasties, but no current custom dynastic legacies. The majority of the region follows the Vujihar faith, one of the cult religions of the game, and contains 3 of the faith's holy sites: the Isle of the Gods, providing no advantage penalty from disembarking, which is a huge buff, but we'll get onto that a little bit later; the Moon Bowl, which provides followers with plus 5% development growth; and the Titan, which increases the diplomatic range of disciples by 10%. At first glance, the disembarking penalty removal is a huge factor, as one of the tenets of the faith, Scourge of the Seas, allows for overseas raiding when other mechanics don't block that is. However, quite peculiarly, it is doubled up by the tenant Shields of the Seas, with the additional bonus of plus 10 coastal advantage, negative 50 sea coastal danger, and a negative 20% embarkation cost. The over-reliance on embarkation cost is going to be a constant theme throughout this video, and I will sum this up later. The other tenets of the faith are the base game tenets, adaptive, tax non-believers, and astrology. In all available current start dates, Braavos starts as a modified version of the administrative government that arrived to Crusader Kings 3 in the Roads to Power DLC. With that, it uses the Free City elective succession law, where leaders reign until death and are elected through spending influence. Unlike the base game, the amount of influence you can spend on promotion is limited, so you need to pay extra attention to succession, expand your base of power, and spend time slandering your opponents and putting heirs in positions of influence. For reference, you can find your investment capacity on the administrative government's family screen. The second change to base game administration is the additional governing laws, namely your opinions on indentured servitude, your term length, though for Braavos there is only one option here, your franchise, and your foreign policy. Pay particular note to your foreign policy, as the modifiers here are extremely harsh and will affect your playstyle. Speaking of playstyle, as you are an administrative government, you will of course have access to the familial estate. Mechanically, as far as we can tell from our research, the estate buildings have not been modified. Therefore, our suggested setup for the estate is as follows: grain fields, storage barns, gardens, markets, and then either an olive grove for plague resistance, a vineyard for influence, or workshops for more development time, or the shrine. If you start as the Sealord of Braavos, you'll notice that you quickly gain the appointment of most of the capital for free. We recommend you revoke control of the arsenal and the Purple Harbour from your minor vassals, as well to hold the special buildings there. Eutharos Shield and Aberin make perfect appointments for your heirs until you can gain a duchy inland for your family to control. As the majority of the Braavos city region is urban, you will very quickly amount massive wealth. But do note, the region starts with very few hospices, and due to high development, we recommend building them pronto. We also recommend building tax offices as your unique duchy building, as the regional special buildings also multiply tax holding base, but offer little else economically. Thus, it's better to buff the region as a whole rather than go for a flat cash injection. If you have enough money, you can later change this for something that is matching your playstyle. We'll talk more in depth about the special buildings of the region later. However, it is excellent to note that when placed correctly within your province, Braavos has the power to create some very unique men-at-arms combos. We recommend the bureaucratic dynastic legacy as a must for running Braavos efficiently. As for playstyles, pretty much all of the lifestyle options will help you hold onto power, bar martial when it comes to Braavos. learning to improve your health and make sure you stick around in control for longer, diplomacy and intrigue to sway the court, and stewardship to hold more territory and earn more money. Of course, a martial playstyle will help if you want to expand Braavos, but solidifying control over Braavos is a chore in itself and must be focused on before you expand. With that in mind, finally on playstyle for the region, that is before we break down banking, the mod recently implemented another unique mechanic that weighs the AI against voting for the current Sealords family, which makes holding the title of Braavos very difficult, unless you can make yourself a dictator. To become a dictator, you require 15,000 prestige. This, like all good dictatorships, removes the elective succession from your realm entirely. This used to have a dread gain modifier attached, however it is now purely a prestige cost, which is hard enough to obtain in one lifetime. However, with enough gold, enough time on the Sealord's throne, parties, and civil wars to establish your family's position of power, anything is possible. There are also events that may overthrow your dictatorship on succession, so be wary. Maybe get yourself crowned as a king while you're at it. Banking. Banking is a new system implemented into the Game of Thrones mod to facilitate loans from entities like the Iron Bank of Braavos. Banking has two main components, being a customer and being a shareholder. For this video, we're going to focus on the shareholder side of things, as that's the majority of what you'll be messing with as a Braavosi noble house anyway. Every character within a bank's realm will be given the opportunity to invest in the bank from time to time. That timing is linked to the actual economic situation of the bank. In order to invest money into the bank first has to be in need of cash. This is the case when the ratio between the cash reserve and the overall bank value is less than 25%. Whenever this happens, a decision becomes available to purchase shares of the bank. Each share costs a fraction of the bank's overall value. Buying a share comes with a membership to the shareholders board, which includes the eligibility to receive dividends or even become elected as the bank's next director. These shares are also inheritable. Of course, shares can be sold if you're in need of cash, but this will only be possible if the bank holds enough free capital to pay you out. All shareholders will receive an event every 5 years, informing them on the bank's performance. If the bank did well, you receive a fraction of its profits as a dividend per share. The bank's profits are calculated as income from interest and investments minus all kind of expenses and lost loans. The biggest chunk of expenses are the running costs of the bank, i.e., wages for clerks and vault guardsmen, which amounts to 5% of the bank's total value every 5 years. When the values per share exceed a certain value, the bank also performs an adjustment where every stock is split in two. This makes sure that new stocks remain affordable as the price of the share is now halved. As a shareholder, you may be tasked by the bank's director to handle defaults. Each option has a price to be paid by the bank. They take more or less time and have a specific chance to succeed or fail, depending on the skill set of you and the debtor. Remember, the more money you spend on the bank's behalf, the lower the bank profits and therefore your dividends will be. Additionally, you will receive a bonus from the bank if you handle the default well. The bonus is higher if you wasted less money on the recovery. From our testing, working your way up the list of actions from lowest cost to highest actually seems to be pretty efficient for saving money overall. The most powerful person and the most important role within the bank is its director. The director is elected by the shareholders, 1 share equaling 1 vote, and needs to be a shareholder themselves. It is an office for life and will grant the opportunity to set the deciding parameters of the bank's business, such as the bank's risk level between low, medium, and high, the dividends rate between 50%, 75%, and 100% of the profits to be paid out, and additionally, it is the director who receives word about defaults. They then decide if they want to handle the default themselves or delegate the task of recovering the loan to a fellow shareholder. Another important task for the director is to fill and manage the bank's investment fund. Every 2 years, the director may invest cash into the fund. Once in there, the money cannot be cashed out again. Every year, the investment fund will either yield a profit or may decline in volume due to losses, mainly depending on the director's stewardship skill. The investment fund's profit-loss amount is also influenced by the bank's risk level. As this is a lot of responsibility for the director, they are also rewarded for doing a good job by receiving influence if you're within an admin realm, or prestige if you're in a non-admin realm. This is proportional to the bank's performance, which is profit divided by bank value. This occurs during the 5-yearly bookkeeping event. Besides the dividend rate and the risk level, the director can also switch the bank's interest rate level. A low rate setup will decrease and a high rate setup will increase the interest rate for new loans by 1%. If you happen to live in another realm other than Braavos and your culture has discovered the banking innovation for you, you will be able to found a new bank. But this is the Braavos guide. Let's save that for another video. For now, let's just focus on efficient bank management. Our best practice guide for efficient bank management is simple. Buy shares whenever they're available, especially in Braavos. Controlling the bank will net you a lot of influence to keep control over the realm and the flow of money. Investing will only help you so much. What you're looking for here really is the influence gain. Furthermore, there can only be 4 banks on the map at any time, and keeping your interest rates competitive will give you the edge when it comes to making sure people take your loans. Spike the investment risk, but keep the loans easy for the AI to want to take them up. Then, once you've built up a bank fund, keep everything to a regular level. And all in all, be aware you will need to spend money to make money. Buildings. In the current build of the AGOT mod, there are 8 unique special buildings and 2 Grand Temple building slots. Whilst we won't cover the statistics of the Grand Temples, as they're the same as base game, we will use them for comparison with other unique buildings of the region. As always in this section, we will break down what each building does and then comment on their effectiveness or how to improve it in overall design. The Sweetwater Font. The Sweetwater River, the great aqueduct that feeds the city of Braavos, finds its source in the mist-covered hills to the south of the city. This makes an important stronghold for keeping the secret city afloat. The holder of this holding gains +10 stationed men-at-arms toughness and +50% supply limit. The holder of this holding gains +50% supply capacity. The buffs from this building are okay. The AGOT mod has so many special buildings these days, it becomes harder and harder to establish a graded letter system to judge them by, but compared to Westerosi minor holding special buildings, this one feels a little lacking. Then again, not everything can be super powered. My advice to a player would be to put some armored footmen here and just be done with it, and then style the province with buildings accordingly. The supply makes sense as it's a water source for the city, but perhaps there could be a disease-resistant boon from it as well, to give a thematic yet more widely useful boon. D tier. The Palace of Truth. The Palace of Truth is where the key holders and other magisters of the City of Braavos elect the new Sealord. The holder of this holding gains +1 stewardship per level of stress, vassal taxes +10%, and -10% legitimacy loss. Very simple, but thematic boons for the Palace of Truth. I do like that the buffs match those given to you through the Avaricious lifestyle line, and that they would stack well with artifacts like the Valyrian Steel Sword Truth, if you can get your hands on it. B tier. The Isle of the Gods. All gods and beliefs are welcome in Braavos. The gods who don't have grand temples and constant worshippers find their home on the Isle of Gods, where the occasional traveller and sailor can pray to their god. The holder of this holding gains +5 different faith opinion and -25% faith conversion cost. The holder of this county also gains the same. Normalize, doubling, holding and county effects for temple special buildings. This is a very nice thematic boon for the multicultural Braavos, and with so many new religions implemented into the game, I bet the conversion cost reduction will see use. Overall, the game impact isn't life-altering, but it is perfect for a secondary building. B tier. Drowned Town. The oldest part of Braavos is the region known as the Drowned Town. It has sunk within the lagoon, with only the tops of buildings breaching the water. Drowned Town has become home to those too poor to live elsewhere, and the criminals hiding from the city's authorities. This holding provides +50% raid time. This county receives +10% control decline. The holder of this holding gains +2 max personal schemes, and the holder of this county gains -10 popular opinion. Whoa, that's a funky little special building there. The negatives here are thematic and annoying, but they are well worth the +2 personal schemes, especially with how fundamental they are in the administration of Braavos' electoral system. Honestly, with how hard it is to stay in power, this, when playing as Braavos, could be clutch to hold. A tier. The Iron Bank of Braavos. Having its origins as an iron mine, the Iron Bank is one of the most formidable entities in the known world. It needs not strong walls, replenishing navies, or even vast armies for its protection, for it is protected by the great power of coin. All kings, lords, and would-be conquerors are bound to the fortune of commerce. This building provides the holding with plus 25% holding taxes. The county receives plus 25% development growth, and the holder of this county receives plus 15% monthly income and negative 10 independent ruler opinion. Boy oh boy am I shocked to not see a flat tax income per month increase. The economic boons here are good, but not triumphantly so, considering it's flat out worse than quite a few Westerosi special buildings from neighbouring administrations, such as the Magister's Harbour in Cheesemonger's Manse. And don't even get me started with how much weaker it is than other places in Westeros. While thematic, the independent ruler opinion doesn't really come into play, as most characters currently sit beneath the Iron Throne. Overall, I think this building can afford to be buffed hard. It's the Iron Bank, for pity's sake. Why is it weaker than most of the mines in Westeros? It needs an economic supercharge for one thing. Furthermore, a thematic non-economic boom for this building that could make it more aligned with what it is could be a reduction to claim fabrication time, if that's possible in the code. But sadly, when you combine it with where it stands in the lore and where it stands in the rest of this world right now, this building is a hard C. Sealords Palace. The Sealords Palace is one of the great sights of the Secret City. With the moon pool before it, its great columns and famous menagerie, the Sealords Palace can match any of the old freehold and castles of Westeros for its grandeur. The holder of this holding receives plus 10% prestige, plus 10 court grandeur bonus, and a plus 15% legitimacy gain. This is a pretty straightforward palace building. Better than the base Leisure Palace, but it's far worse than, say, a Tier 3 Winter Palace Duchy building or the Legendary Palace in terms of its prestige and scheme potential. Again, it could either do with an economic benefit or give it even more roleplay focused boons from the existing base game palaces to make this better. Perhaps an influence bonus for hosting feasts or something. C tier. The Arsenal of Braavos. The Great Arsenal of Braavos is the foundation on which the numerous wooden walls of Braavos are built. Able to produce a full ship from nothing in a single day, the great fleets of Braavos are quickly replenished, even after crushing defeats. This building provides this holding with plus 150% damage, pursuit, and screen to any man-at-arms stationed here, as well as a plus 5% siege progress. The holder of this holding receives negative 50% embarkation cost and plus 50% naval speed. The holder of this county gains negative 50% embarkation cost and the plus 50% naval speed. This arsenal packs a punch. What a huge boon for stationed men-at-arms, and frankly, you could even station mangonels here and make them fantastic, or give crossbowmen the ability to provide siege progress. As you'll see later, Braavos lacks in variety of unique men-at-arms, but this boon more than makes up for it for the person who controls this building. The embarkation and speed is also a welcome boon, but they're kind of already provided in other aspects of Braavosi gameplay. This makes this a high B tier in terms of Braavos, but globally A tier. The Titan of Braavos. The Titan of Braavos is both a beacon and a gate for the Secret City. From its eyes come the lights that direct the incoming ships through the god and isles that protect Braavos, and from its copper walls, it can repel any would-be attacker. This building provides the holding with plus 5 fort level, plus 10 defender advantage, and plus 15% stationed archer damage. The holder of this holding receives plus 25% diplomatic range and negative 25% embarkation cost. Elephant in the room time. We always rail on diplomatic range here, but in all honesty, with the various banking mechanics and with the map expanding further and further with every update, it's starting to become relevant for the AGOT mod. I know, I can't complain about it anymore. The stationed archer damage is also welcome. It's also nice to have one province in the region with a fortification boon. Sadly, there is no economic boon here, and sadly the limitations of Crusader Kings itself rears its ugly head, as if this was a naval zone in which naval combat could occur, we feel this building would have a completely different stylization altogether. Low B tier. Buildings Roundup. What can we say? At first glance, Braavos and its special buildings are disappointing to say the least. Braavos is such an important feature of the A Game of Thrones world building, and its power here feels lackluster. That being said, it's time to talk about my favorite word, Design philosophy. Essos began its implementation way before the administrative governments were brought into CK3 with roads to power. Therefore, the economics of Mir, Tyrosh, and Pentos were crafted with a new system in place created by the developers of the mod, whereas Braavos was implemented with new base game features developed by Paradox in mind. So to that regard, it's probably a little more balanced for multiplayer than other regions, but to me, that makes Braavos lose some of its wonder. Its spectacular nature. After all, the other regions are also admin governments now, right? And half of Westeros has better economic buildings than here. If these special buildings don't receive a bit of love, perhaps after this guide is published, then expect to see a gradual debuff to the rest of the map as the economy is rebalanced everywhere to match features such as the estates brought in by Paradox themselves. Otherwise, Braavos will just sit slightly economically worse than really it should be. Culture. The Braavos region is split by Braavosi and Andalosi culture people. For the purposes of this video, we'll only be talking about the main Braavosi culture. Braavosi utilizes the egalitarian ethos with Valyrian blood, Valyrian tongue, martial, men only, and Braavosi aesthetic cultural pillars. The unique traditions are as follows. Freed from the slavers' chains. Unique amongst the three cities, Braavos was formed by escaped slaves on their way to Valyria, and thus is made up of peoples from all over the known world and beyond. This has shaped Braavos into a city and nation of many peoples, where one rule reigns above them all. No man, woman, or child in Braavos will ever be a slave, thrall, or bondsman. With this, children are more likely to get the pensive trait. The organizer commander trait is more common. Some commander traits and personality traits have extra wetland bonuses. Some temperate traits are more common. The slave owner trait is looked down upon, and wanderers get extra economic skills over time, such as stewardship or lifestyle traits. All Braavosi characters gain plus 50% diplomatic range and negative 10 to independent ruler opinion, carried by purple sails, and because they had risked their lives in the name of freedom, the mothers and fathers of the new city vowed that no man, woman, or child in Braavos will ever be a slave, thrall, or bondsman. This is the first law of Braavos, engraved in the stone on the arch that spans the long canal. From that day to this, the Sealords of Braavos have opposed slavery in all its forms and fought many a war against slavers and their allies. This tradition allows for the recruitment of purple marines, which we'll cover later, and provides all Braavosi characters with plus 0.1 influence per month, plus 10 different faith opinion, and plus 5 coastal advantage, plus 10% levy reinforcement rate, and plus 10 skirmisher damage. The remaining traditions for the culture are the same as the base game and are the following: seafarers, astute diplomats, parochialism, and religion blending. These cultural pillars make a lot of sense for the region. However, there is an overwhelming amount of embarkation cost reduction all across the Braavosi design. Within the game, percent-based modifiers used to be calculated additively, not multiplicatively, but since 1.4 of CK3, that got changed for a lot of the base game stats, and there has been a hidden cap of 90% to prevent embarkation from becoming free, making the majority of these modifiers, found littered throughout the cultures and buildings in Braavos, pretty much pointless fluff, something to really think about. Men-at-Arms. Braavos only has access to 2 men-at-arms special units, Westerosi Sellswords from the Free Company innovation, and Purple Marines from their cultural tradition. Westerosi Sellswords. Many Westerosi knights find service in the free companies of Essos. They are not as dedicated as those sworn to a lord in Westeros, for coin is never as strong as an oath. They are a heavy cavalry men-at-arm unit that costs 135 gold base and produce 75 men per level. They have a base damage of 90, a base toughness of 30, pursuit of 15, and screen of 0. They counter archers, skirmishers, and heavy infantry. They gain plus 5 bonus to pursuit in meadows and plains, and a negative 10 to pursuit in mountains, desert mountains, glaciers, frozen flats, and a negative 22 toughness and pursuit in the bog. Their maintenance is 0.94 gold per month and 0.31 per month unraised. Essos doesn't generally gain its own heavy cavalry, so for what they're worth, they'll help out, but Westerosi Sellswords are by no means a match for some of the more potent knights across the sea. Purple Marines. Braavos is the second greatest force among the 3 cities, and its chief source of power is the navy. Their purple sails, dyed from the snails found in the lagoon, ferry the marines of the city across the seas. The Marines are a skirmisher that cost 49 gold per level and produce 100 men. They have a base damage of 10, a base toughness of 15, pursuit of 20, and screen of 20. They counter light cavalry. They gain an additional plus 10 toughness in wetlands and in urban, plus 5 in highland forest and hills. They gain negative 5 to toughness in steppe, targia bog and mountains, and negative 10 toughness in the bog, desert mountains, drylands, canyons, glaciers, and frozen flats. Their full maintenance is 0.17 per month, and their unraised maintenance is a measly 0.02 per month. These skirmishers are really easy to buff way beyond the baseline stats thanks to those special buildings and cultural boons that we spoke about earlier, which makes them a really cheap and effective alternate to raising levies and padding your men-at-arms stacks. Closing thoughts. Braavos' implementation brought us an almost complete free city coastline and a new banking system. But it feels a little empty compared to the other free cities we have. It feels economically challenging compared to ruling one of the others, which is mildly infuriating. But other than that, the model design is lovely. I do wish this with all the free cities, that there was a little more inland special buildings and flavor. But really, that's to be expected. Also, as a side note, we haven't had any new Valyrian steel swords implemented, but I did find that the Sealord of the earliest start date does have access to 3 dragon eggs. Do with that information what you will. Outside of that, thank you so much for watching this extended look at Braavos in CK3, A Game of Thrones. My name is Midgeman, and this is the second episode in our regional deep dives within the mod. Don't forget to leave a like if you'd like to see this series continue, and let us know in the comments where we should head next in the A Song of Ice and Fire universe, or let us know any other additional information you'd like to see added to this guide set in the future videos. Have a wonderful rest of your time zone, and I'll see you in the next video.